Hi students, this is a short video to discuss the critical response paper that you have due at the beginning of the semester. In the first part of the video, I'm going to talk about how to actively read the reading set that you chose and how to then summarize. And then in the second part, I'll talk a little bit about one of the articles. And in the third part, I'll just go over the actual assignment. So what you see here is this is an article that I've been reading on Subtext, which is my one of the free apps that I use where I can keep PDF files, and it will save my comments and my highlights. So you can see here a tag, comment I made, and a highlight. I just chose purple. You can do it however you want. So when I asked you to actively read, what I mean is to annotate. So in other words, you're not just sitting back and reading and maybe highlighting every once in a while or making a note or making a mark for yourself every once in a while. You're actually interacting with the reading. So here you can see an example. I'm sorry this sort of blocked the whole paragraph, but this was about NBC's decision to tell certain stories during the 2010 Vancouver Olympic Games. So at the end of the paragraph, I thought it was important, this part. Yet NBC's decision to downplay both Amon and Bjorgen's stories suggests the network believes its audience is just interested in American stories. So in other words, two of the biggest stories coming out of the Vancouver Games were about non-American athletes. But NBC really didn't spend a lot of time telling the American audience or even the worldwide audience much about these athletes. So I thought that was important. My annotation, which is really a comment or a question about the who, what, why, where, when, based on your own knowledge and prior experience, that's an annotation. So here I have a tag that I wrote in Subtext, and again, it's a free app. You can figure out how to get PDFs on your iPad, and then it will keep your notes and annotations. So I added an annotation, an example of decisions NBC makes for viewers. So for later on, when I come back to this, if I were to write a critical response, I would keep this in mind as a possible important piece for my paper. So I wanted to show you that first. That's what I mean by actively reading the three readings in your reading set. So once you take annotations and notes on the reading set, the next task you have is to summarize. Pulling together a large amount of material. Summary starts with, here's an example, like a large amount of material. You're reading three separate pieces. And I'm asking you to summarize down to 2 pages. What are the most important pieces from these three readings as a whole? So at this point, you have to decide what are the important pieces that cut across all three that you would write about in a 2-page summary. That's the first task in the reading, in the article, in the critical response that you're writing, sorry. The second task is, so this is summary of all three. You're taking a lot of information, distilling it down into 2 pages of summary. The second part is synthesis. The second part is synthesis. So now you're going to make some kind of argument about, again, about these three readings as a whole, but connecting your own experience, knowledge, and ideas. So sort of like these annotations. But you're going to make an argument about these three readings as a whole from your own perspective, your own knowledge, your own background, something you saw, or something that you think is really interesting that pulls these three together. So here I just want to tell you a little bit about the actual project that one of the articles in the set that you're reading, which is my study of the 2012 London Olympic Games. So the history of the project was that there was an undergraduate physical education major who wanted to do a research project. And by the way, this is available to all of you. And if you want to set yourself apart from other students and you're serious about your work, then you should think about pairing with a faculty member in our department to distinguish yourself. Anyway, this student, Shelley Maroney, chose 4 events from the London Games, and we designed research questions and a protocol for how and what we would do during the London Games, which were in the summer of 2012, and then a framework for how we would analyze the NBC coverage of the 4 events. Our guiding question in the project as a whole was, how do the NBC commentators actually discuss the female athletes? We based our question on prior research. If you remember in the presentation where how to read a research article, the first part is prior research. We based it on things we know about typically how female athletes are discussed when they do get media coverage, which is a focus on their bodies or their personal lives, and not so much on their athleticism. So we wanted to know, in the London Games, how were the women athletes discussed in these 4 sports? Okay, so the last part of the presentation is about the critical response paper itself. So you can see in the assignment, this is on Moodle, read the 3 articles of your choice. Here. And then write a critical response paper that follows the following guidelines. First, write a summary of the texts. You should make connections between the articles if you can. No direct quotes in this section. Remember, summary, you're taking a large amount of material and in your own words condensing it to the main, most important points. Where you do use the information from the articles, you should cite them in text, which is last name, or of all the authors is just an example, and the year. That is an in-text citation for a summary. So after you do that, you write a smooth transition between the summary and your response or your synthesis. So there should be a transitional paragraph, or at least a transitional few sentences at the beginning of a new paragraph. Your own synthesis of the material, using your prior knowledge, make connections, ask questions, discuss what you think is most relevant in this day and age. In the context of our class, a critical analysis, a socio-cultural analysis of sport. Do your best here, and we will have time to expand and revise on this assignment like all the assignments. At the end of the paper, a reference list listing the 3 texts as best you can and any other sources you use, even though I don't think you need more than these for the assignment. It should flow as one continuous paper. That's why I'm asking you to have the transitional area in the paper.